Tonight on It's the Law, we're talking about how pleas in a local murder case impacted sentencing. You'll recall 41 NBC told you Monday 3 people indicted for the murder of Macon Legal Secretary Gail Spencer pleaded guilty. Here to weigh in is our legal expert, Jay Davis. Okay, Jay, so let's first talk about their pleas. They're all going to serve life in prison. So when a judge gets a plea, what do they usually consider when that happens?
Well, the first thing they do is they look at the evidence to make sure that the plea comports with the evidence, what's been alleged in the case, and to make sure that those things have been stipulated to it to some degree.
Okay, and then is it normal for them to maybe hand down a lesser sentence when someone enters a plea?
Normally when you think of a plea, people think of a plea bargain. Sometimes it's a bargain, sometimes it's not a bargain. Sometimes there's a reduction in what the actual charge is. This case, there's not a reduction in the charge, but they did take death penalty off the table, so that was a benefit from them. If they went to trial, at least a couple of those are under a position where they would be subject to the death penalty.
That was my next question, actually. The DA was seeking the death penalty against 2 of the suspects in this case who actually already pled. So how does the DA determine which people? They're all charged with the same crime. How does he determine?
There's a lot of discretion for a DA to determine. Any DA would have different methods. Some DAs may be pro-death penalty. They may look for death penalties more often. Some DAs may be personally inclined not to, depending on their political leanings and their opinions on that. In this case, there were at least 2 of them were indicted. They could have gone for different reasons for death penalty. One is to do a murder for hire and that type of thing, which could have been the case here. A murder for money is a little bit different, but it's also there. A murder to keep from being caught for another crime that you committed. All of those are deserving of a death penalty under certain. So they could have sought the death penalty in these cases.
All right, and finally, the 4th suspect in this case didn't plea. Do you feel like the fact that his alleged co-conspirators did is going to impact his trial at all?
Well, it'll have to impact the trial. I mean, they may or may not be called as witnesses. They could be called there to testify, and their testimony could be compelled. Of course, they could always refuse. They're locked up for life anyway. What do they got to lose by not saying anything? But they can enter the evidence that the people they were with have also done it, and so it will play a role. Whether or not they're there, whether or not a defense attorney would say, I believe primarily the defense may be that he was the getaway driver or somebody who was involved from a lesser standpoint, could probably claim that he didn't know what was going on. There was a different motive for coming there. I don't know what his defense would be in there, but it definitely would come in and it would make a play on whatever they're going to do there.
Thank you, Jay, as always.